Hello, all. I am hoping that me and my non-self here. Hi, how's everyone doing? I am Crystal Brown, a Pittsburgh-based cultural teaching artist and member of the Virtual Dance Exchange Project Collective of Artists, and I welcome you to the VDEP Symposium's third dialogue of a three-part series. Our previous talks have highlighted equity and cultural diversity in dance, how this intersects with technology, how technology and arts fields can possibly support one another, and how this affects smaller cities' reputations. Tonight, we focus on tech strategies for small performing arts companies. What is possible now? We hope that you all have had an opportunity to view the VDEP presentation via YouTube 360 VR. If not, tickets for the presentation will be available until November 20th, with viewing available until December 1st. So you can find the link, we'll pop it in the Zoom chat for you. I'll get to that in a second. But also the members of VDEP have been making the rounds on the radio scene. Shana Simmons and myself had the privilege of speaking about this work and process in today's episode of The Confluence with Kevin Gavin, which is available for streaming on Pittsburgh's WESA 90.5's website. I will also drop that link in the comments also. So you may be asking yourself, what is VDEP? Well, VDEP, once again, is a collective of artists that have come together through Shana Simmons Dance and with XR Connected to create innovative new art using technology. The VDEP Collective is on this call with me as well, and we have Karen Alexander and Bianca Johnson, also with Shana Simmons, our sort of, captain of the ship, who will be moderating this evening's discussion. In 2021, we created 3 new works, choreographed for and filmed in 360 degrees for an immersive experience. In addition to developing new productions, VDEP also chose to host public dialogues focusing on equity, technology, education, and the arts. This first year is focusing on making efforts to bridge the racial divide in the Pittsburgh dance community by focusing on inequities in technology and the arts, emphasizing the importance of both and highlighting ways specifically VR and the arts are already intersecting. Over the past few months, the members of the VDEP Collective have worked to bring to light the similarities, differences, and challenges that exist in Pittsburgh and New York as a working artist. While we were busy creating our art expressions, we made conscious decisions to include and address those thoughts that came through conversations that centered around race, gender, age, economics, and ability. Tonight, we will further this discussion with our guest panelists to be introduced to you in a moment. This project would not have been possible if not for the Arts Equity Reimagined Fund through New Sun Rising. We also extend our thanks to tonight's panelists and all who have joined us for parts 1 and 2 of the VDEP Symposium. We also take this time to acknowledge the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Shawnee and Osage peoples. In addition, we acknowledge the legacy of African descent inhabitants, both enslaved and free, that continues to add to the fabric that binds and builds our community. A little housekeeping. As a reminder, this dialogue presentation is being recorded, so if you have to step out or even want to view the previous 2 symposium dialogues, we will have those again in the chat. I'll get to it in a second. For any questions to the panelists, please post them in the chat feature located at the bottom of your screen. Again, thank you for tuning in to this third, of 3 VDEP Symposium dialogues. And I am happy to turn the evening over to my VDEP collaborator and XR woman, Karen Alexander.
Thank you, Crystal. What a great introduction. And wow, I can't believe we're here at the last VDEP dialogue. We have been working together for a long time. So Shana Simmons and I were introduced by a mutual friend here in Pittsburgh, where we are based, who thought we might want to work together. She was a dancer. I work in XR Technologies. And we started planning. We recruited Crystal. We recruited Bianca to get involved with this project. And this was more than a year ago that we got started. I'm the odd one out in this group. The others are dancers and choreographers. I am coming from the XR space. My world is in XR technologies. I got my inspiration to get involved in this space through feminist art and also 360 video after hearing Chris Milk talk about it as the ultimate empathy machine. And I dove in headfirst in 2016, moved to Pittsburgh in 2017, started a project called PGH and 360 Youth Perspectives, where we used a workshop style to teach youth to create 360 videos about issues that matter to them. And that was where I met Jay Cho, because he helped me out with the first workshop that we did at One Hood Media. I run a group called XR Women. We meet weekly in a virtual world. And I have seen there through my community the explosion of talent and creativity that is taking place right now with immersive technologies. Immersive theater, 360 video enhanced in all sorts of ways, volumetric video and motion capture, which are technologies that we want to explore next for VDEP, new ways of capturing dance. And so these technologies have enabled all kinds of new creative possibilities. And we want artists, even from small companies, individual artists, to explore these creative possibilities that new technologies have to offer, and to be bold and to take risks. So this panel tonight is meant to inspire you to do that. You're going to hear from creatives working in the space who will talk about what they have been doing and how, and will let you know what is possible now and hopefully lead you to start your own project. So get ready to listen to some amazing people. I am really excited about it myself, and we hope you will engage in dialogue with the panelists as well. So now, returning it over to Shayna Simmons.
So yeah, hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Real quick, just to kind of briefly slide this in here. Jonathan, wondering if we can roll the VDEP trailer just so we kind of get a visualization of kind of what this past year has been about. And then we're going to go roll right into our first guest for the evening, Lauren Ruffin.
Hey, Jonathan, the video doesn't have sound.
Okay, I just want to do a quick sound check and make sure everyone can hear me. So if you can comment on Zoom. Abby's giving me a thumbs up. That's awesome. Okay, great. So we're on. That's great. Welcome to the stage, Lauren Ruffin. She is joining us from Albuquerque, New Mexico. We are very excited to have Lauren here. Lauren, I just actually, in your own words, I want you to talk to us a little bit about yourself. What has not so much your journey been, but what is it that the bulk of what you do in VR, XR world? Obviously talk about Crux, and then we'll get a little bit into some of the projects that you do.
Yeah. So hey, everybody. Lauren Ruffin. I am in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Albuquerque's home to 19 tribes, and they're here still fighting for jurisdiction and sovereignty of their land. So I got into VR like so many folks did when the New York Times sent out a Google Cardboard. I think that was in like 2014. And just really fell in love with the medium. I've always loved storytelling. At the time I've done policy work in the past. At the time I was working in a homeless shelter, and I gave kids 360 cameras to sort of tell their stories around what it felt like to live in a family shelter that was quite dilapidated in DC. Fast forward a couple years, I said yes to a job at Fractured Atlas and started going to Tribeca, Sundance, and other sort of big film festivals and noticing inequity in the space. I was seeing these amazing projects by primarily Black women creators that weren't being funded, where average projects by white men were raising, 6-7 figures for their work, and that really wasn't pushing the medium in terms of storytelling, which is why I started Crux. Crux is a cooperative of Black artists working in immersive storytelling. We were pretty stringent on having a really tight definition of VR before the pandemic, meaning, totally immersive in a headset experiences. The pandemic and a lot of the work we've done in partnership with other organizations has really helped us work with a variety of different platforms that range from being traditional VR projects. We did a VR, we've done a couple of VR plays. One you can visit at imagination.black. We did a series of 3 short plays with, and I should apologize for background noise. My father-in-law is getting married in my backyard right now, and he's a trial lawyer, and he's very loud. So he's yelling even though he knows I'm doing something. What was I saying? Imagination.black. We hired 3 Black female playwrights and commissioned them to do plays in VR. We trained actors to act in VR and did a really fun live performance series in Altspace, which is a social VR platform. But we also do stuff that's not super immersive, although it has a high level of interactivity and audiences love it, which is the clip that I brought, because I think it really shows platforms that people aren't really using that I think lend themselves well. We've done a number of dance projects. We've done work with New York Live Arts. I think dance as a medium really does lend itself to VR. It sort of just works. And it's beautiful and easy to do, whether that's 360 video or doing sort of a more immersive type of storytelling. So I'll end there, and I don't know if we're going to play the clip now or not, but I'm excited for y'all to sort of check it out. It's pretty cool. It's at a platform called Oh Yay.
So Lauren, what are we looking at right here? It's called Oh Yay. It's a new platform, right?
It is. And there's audio here. So what you're seeing is we did the YBCA 100 Summit. We had about 700 people in this space. And this is the closing sort of moment, the curtain call, after we'd done a 90-minute program. The clapping that you're seeing, the sort of that emoji actually has applause. And the more people clap, the louder it gets. Folks love that feature. The flowers that are moving around, people can sort of give flowers to their friends in spaces. I've done Super Bowl parties. I know Pittsburgh is a football town. I used to hang out in the Poorhouse in DC, which is Steelers Bar. My best friends from Pittsburgh. So many nights drinking with y'all. But like we did a Super Bowl party last year and like had nachos and chicken wings that we were moving around in an immersive space. What I love about it is that it doesn't require a headset. So it's really accessible for audiences and it's really easy to build in there. And I know that we're going to talk about VR, but I did want to provide an example of something that's for folks who are just getting started, might feel a little bit more accessible.
And so my question is the little tiny box in the corner. What was that? Was it it was a performance?
Right. And when it was live, so it was a full screen performance. And we had in this event, we did some 360 video inside of the platform, but it was mostly flat. And for this platform, it's really about how do we rethink immersive and audience engagement in a different way? Because sometimes being in a headset can be isolating. And so for us, it really, in particular, this was in February, March. People were isolated. So, we initially conceived of a VR project and decided that we wanted something that would really bring the community together. And, we're still getting a lot of calls about sort of what the platform was and how we can leverage the platform to do new work.
Because there's been a lot of conversation that I've had with a lot of the panelists, just random different stages that we're in with this new technology. And what you're speaking to is the fact that a lot of it is isolating for the audience member, but it's highly interactive. It can be highly interactive for the performer audience relationship. But then if you think about that versus live performance, you kind of have both going on at the same time. You might be interacting with people side by side and or interacting with the performers, depending on what show you go to. Classic proscenium, it's probably going to be a little less interactive with the performers. They're performing for you, and then you give your applause, that kind of a thing. But I guess my question is, in your experience, have you worked on anything where we're focused on audience engagement, we're focused on audience performer engagement? Is there anything yet that's crossing over between the two?
Yeah, I mean, that Imagination series that we did would be a great example. And it's readily available on YouTube. We had a number of folks who were in the audience. I mean, the actors that was the first time they performed in VR. It was the first time the directors had written in VR. For a number of our audience members, that was the first time they were in an immersive space. And it was really fun because it was so clunky. Like, it was fun because you had people sort of wandering through the scene because they just couldn't figure out what was happening. And it was awesome. It was also interesting to realize that with very little marketing, we sold out shows. And we thought we would have sort of our friends and family kind of show up. But what we realized is we dropped a couple of, sort of, hey, come join us in a couple of Black and VR groups. And they just turned out, they were so hungry for live content in VR with folks who look like them and stories that really resonated. But that was, and it was something we spun up in, God, we might have done that in 6 weeks. We really just wanted to do it. We really just said, let's just do it and see what happens. And it was super fun. And I think while we do stuff that's super high quality and is at Tribeca and, we've done those things, I really like the projects that are a bit scrappier and are a little bit non-traditional. I think those are the ones that really resonate with our audiences.
And then one last question, Lauren, to talk about Crux a little bit. So you started this. Would you call it an organization? Is it what would you define it as? Cooperative.
We're a cooperative. So we are democratically governed, shared ownership, not as much shared leadership as I would like. We really did a lot of shared leadership work at Fractured Atlas. But, we bring folks in, they're able to sort of, instead of thinking about funders in the same way, our workers, the people we work with, our collaborators, are owners of the business. And it really does flip that power dynamic and sort of pushes the idea of the collective, which is so prominent in the arts, to sort of the next level, which is how do we share wealth and how do we really get into some movement building and economic justice work in those conversations within our space.
Yeah, I also think, do you think that's kind of reimagining maybe an artistic structure of how things might function? We're so used to depending on funders or depending on donations, and how do you think Crux might fit into this kind of reimagining of that space?
Yeah, I mean, 100% on the, I've been a fundraiser for the bulk of my career. I've taken a break for the last couple of years, but I got tired of asking for money. And I really think examining the structures that keep us as creatives beholden to people with money to sort of dictate what we do and how we do it is necessary. And I think cooperative models provide a way out. There's a lot of interest in the sector right now in co-ops. A number of foundations just commissioned a report that you can find at art.coop. So there's some traction happening here around around how we can support artists empowering themselves to do work in a different way.
I think that's amazing. Is that like a Western movement? Is it out east anywhere?
No, it's happening. That was commissioned by like Mellon and Duke and a bunch of East Coast funders. So those conversations are happening. And I think for me, as someone who also lives in sort of a mid-major city, now I was in DC for a long time, but I grew up in a super rural town in New Jersey. I'm always thinking about how do we get these conversations to get out of those cities so that I actually think cooperative models could work so well in a mid-major city because the cost of living, the cost of overhead venue space and everything is just more accessible. You get to San Francisco, New York, where there's really no way to fix the model that's broken on top of a, sort of capitalistic real estate market and scarcity. So yeah, but I would be happy to talk about solidarity economies anytime. I'm really into it, but yeah, it's cool. And I really appreciate the invitation.
Yeah, absolutely. We're so honored to have you here for sure. All right, I'm going to pause this. You'll be back. And can we move over to Katherine Helen Fisher? Kate Fisher. And Kate is joining us from California. And Kate, if you just want to talk a little bit.
I'm actually in Bronxville right now on Lenape land.
Oh, okay.
But I am based in LA.
Right. Yeah. Sorry about that. I forgot.
No worries.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about, you've had an extensive dance career. You can briefly go over maybe like some of the highlights of that moment, because I do think that your intersection of film started in New York. So as this like prominent dance career was going. So if you want to tell us a little bit about that first project and kind of what you've done.
Sure. Thank you so much for hosting this event and for having me. I'm really thrilled to be among such an illustrious group of artists on this panel. I was a professional dancer for about 25 years, 25 years, I'm losing track. I danced for Momix and ODC San Francisco and Mark Morris and the Lucinda Childs Dance Company and Johannes Wieland and a bunch of other awesome tiny companies in New York City and other people that I'm losing track of right now. But yeah, touring professional dancer. And when I was studying in college with Bianca at Tisch, I kind of thought that I would be a choreographer, and this kind of professional dance career was not really planned or expected, but I always wanted to make my work and really struggled to find funding for it, and came upon someone who was funding a project for me, and I made a dance film in 2010 called Finite and Infinite Games that actually had a budget, and I fell in love with the medium, and I realized that in order to continue to make work on film, new media work, that I had to learn how to do it myself, because I didn't have the money to keep hiring people to do it for me. So I started Safety Third Productions with my partner, then friend, now husband, and we have a digital new media production company. I found that I could kind of midwife the creative process of getting into filmmaking for choreographers, because I think choreographers can sometimes feel railroaded by, film is such a hierarchical system that can be really male dominated, and a lot of times filmmakers have been trained to focus the camera on things that as dancers and choreographers we're not as interested in. So I think it's really important to have someone translating dance for the camera on set. And so yeah, I realized that I could kind of create a lucrative platform for myself and for fellow artists to produce artist work, to work with brands. We've done a lot of brand content, and bigger artists, like we've worked with Radiohead and Rufus Wainwright. We've worked with fashion with Hermes, and then funnel the money that I made doing producing and directing through Safety Third back into my own avant-garde art projects. I was in Einstein on the Beach, which toured the world for 6 years, and I kind of I'm really in love with non-narrative work that is avant-garde, that is about images and association, and that is durational and that is challenging. That's really where my passion lies. And recently I've been working with Touch Designer, which is, according to Wikipedia, a node-based visual programming language for real-time interactive media content. And it's used to create performances and installations and generative artwork. If anyone has been to the Shed in New York here, there's a project called Drift, Fragile Futures, which is a huge monolithic interactive installation with these floating boxes. It's amazing. You got to go. But that's being done through Touch Designer. I partner with a company called Standard Vision in LA who manufacture monolithic video screens. And I'm really interested in making public art to democratize dance forms. You know, so many years I performed at the Joyce Theater, and you go in there and it's all old white people. And I really feel like in order for our form to survive, to like get to the global South, to have a meaningful impact, we have to broaden the audiences that we reach and the people who are a part of the conversation. So I feel like digital media can do that, and it can be extremely experimental and accessible. And yeah, I'm really excited about this moment that's happening right now, because I think with cameras being available to consumers, increasingly anyone can do this work, and anyone can teach themselves to do this work. So yeah, I think it's a fun time.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that, I had a two-part question. So first of all, you had said, you fell in love with the medium. And so I was curious about what you love about, is it just film, or is it everything that's encompassing what you're doing now? And that being said, I wanted you to talk a little bit about Protea, right? And talk about what we're watching. And that is the nodal program touch designer you had mentioned, which I've never heard that phrase before. So yeah, tell us about what that scape is. But if you want to start with maybe like what you love about it, like what are you drawn to?
Yeah, well, first of all, I love performing. I love the kind of tantric thing that happens between the audience and the performer, where you like enter someone else's psyche and body when you're dancing. Like, I really feel like I take on other people's lives. And I was curious when I first started making film if that same magic would happen. And when it, like they yelled roll camera, I was like, it's there, this like magnetic ballet or, symphony that happens between all the people that are working together. I love the collaboration of it. I love the communication involved, and that you can't be alone. It's not the 19th century, like genius creator model. You have to speak and talk and communicate. So I love that. Protea, I'm studying to get my master's degree at Sarah Lawrence. Another thing I love about the filmmaking process and the editing process and post-production is, as a performer and like a perfectionist in technique wise, like I've always wanted to repeat over and over again, to hone and refine. And as I have entered middle age and my knees are arthritic and I have trouble walking sometimes, it gives me a way to kind of replicate that kind of ritualistic moving process. Through the repetition of seeing an image over and over again and really mulling it over. And it's like, it's like water over a stone. It gets smooth with the repetition. So I love that about the process. So I made Protea here at Sarah Lawrence last semester I was studying remotely. We shot it at Standard Vision, where we have these huge monolithic video screens. They actually are pioneering various techniques with virtual production. And we played around with doing performances on this stage where we would have like the audience members visible. And I should just say, trigger warning, there's some nudity in this. So I had just had a child in the pandemic. I had a C-section, and I'm like grappling with my changing body and pain and my relationship to motherhood and the kind of morphing distortion of like reality. I really am into like things that are dealing with perception right now, and I think technology is pretty interesting in how you can kind of warp perception. I'm interested in the multiplicity of screens that go on, and how somehow, like right now I'm working on a new live experience called Liminal Collective, and the screen, sometimes it's like you see the real performer in life, but it's more gratifying to see it on the screen, and sometimes even more gratifying to see it through your phone on the screen and the live performer. And I think it's interesting to examine, like, what is technology doing to us, and to kind of be critical of that, but also to embrace how it's changing, our posture, our daily routines, the way we use our bodies, the way we see, the way we perceive.
Mm-hmm. Totally, yeah. What was the nodal program touch designer that was utilized, I think, in that clip, right?
Yeah, so basically I had a big old video screen behind me, and we played with the slit scan. So it's probably not super apparent on the video, but like it allows a performer to be live and then to have a camera running through the touch designer system, and you can manipulate the digital image in many different ways. You can also control light, you can control sound, and you can control lasers, and you can you could control drones if you wanted to, and you could choreograph all of these interfaces. That's something I'm also really interested in terms of education, is like, how can we educate people who are dance-based artists to work outside or beyond the medium, which doesn't pay you. It's almost, I have friends that are like dying right now because they have lived, kind of outside the margins for so long, and have not been able to do self-care. So I'm really interested in sustainable models for artists, outside of the foundation funding system, which just keeps us kind of working against one another and, on our knees, like begging for scraps. So yeah. I want to get paid. I want to be safe. I want to keep my people safe. And I want to make experimental, groundbreaking work.
Yeah. I mean, no tall order. It's fine. That's peanuts. It's fine. Well, I appreciate it. I'm here for you. Whatever I can help with.
Thank you. Same. I mean, I do think it's about community, and research, and, being a creative technologist is like about sitting down in the room and just throwing stuff together and saying, like, what does this do? I don't know yet. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that people, like funders and institutions, could, like, it would be great to be able to, like, create a primer for people to be like, this takes time, it doesn't just happen overnight. Right. You got to get in there and sit with it.
Right. Experiment, learn, all those things. Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much, Kate. We will jump back to you in a second. We're going to move on to Jaehee Cho, which was one of our collaborators for the Virtual Dance Exchange project. Welcome, Jaehee. Jaehee, you're currently in Pittsburgh right now as well. Is that true? Oh.
Hello.
Great, here he is.
Hi, Shanna.
Hey, Jaehee.
Sorry, I was muted.
Oh, yeah. You're fine. Yeah, you're in Pittsburgh as well, right?
Yeah, I'm in Pittsburgh.
Okay, great. Yeah. So, Jaehee, you're originally from Korea. Yeah. And your inspiration to kind of transition into maybe not a different media, but a different use of a similar media, which expanded your use of what technology is and what you're interested in doing. Can you talk about that little transition, what brought you to CMU, all that kind of like time in your life? Okay.
I mean, I started my career as a music video producer in Korea, and I've worked there for 2-3 years, working with, K-pop singers. It was pretty fun to work with them. But, at that time, I think iPhone came out like the year before, and I wanted to explore the medium of like, okay, it seems like everything is becoming like interactive. Your phone, you could do so many things with it. And, with the film, like how could we make like interactive films? And I was like, I wanted to learn more, and using technology, wanted to tell like innovative story. And that's how I decided to come to the States and learn, VR, game design, learn how to make interactive documentary and all that. So, and luckily I got accepted to Carnegie Mellon and, started learning like VR back in 2014. And that was the year, I believe, Facebook got acquired Oculus. And, luckily I was able to get the VR headset and, I totally, when I first tried VR headset, I was so amazed and shocked by this technology and wanted to research and produce more projects with it. So that's my story.
That's very awesome. So I mean, we had talked previously, like last week when we did our little, chat about how you feel that, filming in 360 immersive experiences really can really drive a point home. It is an experience that you would not get in a theater. And a lot of what you do could either be considered a documentary about a given subject or person or population. But can you share some of the couple of projects that you brought with you today? Because they were really powerful. So.
Sure. I mean, I think I could share like two of my projects. I've been producing like VR, producing and directed for around like 15 VR experience at this point. But one of projects that I did at Carnegie Mellon was, the project is called Injustice. The motivation for this project, I was inspired by this Michigan, the shooting incident in Michigan and Black Lives Matter. Because, when I first, actually, could you volume up the trailer? Okay. All right. Yeah. So back in 2014, this is the short trailer of Injustice. Basically, as a user, you could interact with this character in VR, and interactive meaning voice recognition and gaze interaction. So at this point, you could actually choose one of, you could choose your own adventure, and based on your decision, the story will go differently.
So we're seeing the part of the audience, right? That's what the camera's turning. Yeah. And did you have to do anything like, what does a head movement do? Did any thought process go into or research go into what would an audience be watching right here?
So, I mean, in this experience, you are one of the bystander and you are witnessing this incident, and you get to choose, you could actually choose what you want to do in this scene. So when we created this experience, we did a lot of we did a lot of play tests with people, so that we asked them what would you do if you are in this situation? And basically we wrote down all the answers and try to come up with those options.
Oh, wow. So there was a lot of human research almost that went into what was a common expression that someone might use, or, and then did you have any research done about what people chose? Did majority audience choose A or B, or was it just kind of, it didn't matter, it was just about the experience at that point?
I mean, first of all, when we created this experience, it was really early stage of VR. As you can see in the trailer, we had Oculus DK2, back in 6 years ago. And first of all, we had to figure out a lot of, tech, cause to make it interactive, we had to use game engine called Unity. But Unity at that time, they didn't really support any 360 video playback. So we had to build our plugin to import 360 high quality 360 video so that we could make it interactive. So that was the hard part. And at the same time, we wanted to figure out the story. So story part, that's when we used a lot of paper play tests because we couldn't even build a prototype for this experience. So let's say, but still, we got to write the story, right? So, okay, how could we write the story? And we thought that, oh, maybe we can ask a lot of people and, come up with some idea. So even during the experience, there's one option that you could actually, leave the whole situation. You are, you just ignore the whole situation and you could go home. So that was actually based on some of play tests that we did.
Yeah, that's intense. I mean, it looked like the audience was, really engaged, more so than, and actually similarly, but one of the comments from Virtual Dicks Exchange Project, it just reminded me of someone saying, I felt uninhibited watching dance for the first time. And so I wonder if your audience, that was experiencing this, I'm just calling them an audience, but, this experience for them, they felt uninhibited to the point where they could comfortably make a choice, interact. They weren't scared to do something, in this kind of setup situation. Yeah, which I think is really amazing.
Yeah, and also, I'm saying this many times, but it was really early days of VR. So most of people, it was their like first time to even wear the VR headset.
Yeah.
So their reaction was real. Like they were really shocked. Even in trailer, somebody like, there's a point that you get like you don't really get taser gun, but like, the police says like, put your hands up, and hands up, and then actually there were some audience who were doing that.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I even in a lighter way, but with the dance, people were actually moving, and usually even at an interactive when they're trying to get you to move, but you've been sitting for 30 minutes, it's like, okay, maybe I'll move a little bit, and I'm a dancer. So I think it allows that freedom in people.
Yeah. It was amazing to see that kind of reaction at the VDEP events because, a lot of people, like you said, they were like dancing, in VR. So, that was really, really interesting and fun. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Did you want to share your second clip that you brought with you?
Sure.
Okay. Go ahead. Tell us a little bit about it and what is it called?
That was the VR project called Journey Through the Camps. I've been doing a lot of educational VR and VR for good type of experience. And this was actually Carnegie Mellon wanted to create like an educational VR experience about the Holocaust. So in the campus, they have this, I'll say, museum-like space so that students come to this place and learn about different culture and history. And this was actually their first VR piece for the room. So actually for this project, I got to travel to Poland twice. We went to Auschwitz and try to measure the whole camp, barrack, and everything, and try to make it as real as possible, recreate the scene in virtual reality. So as a user, you get to hear like survivors' testimonials, and also you get to walk around the Auschwitz camp, and there's like a little bit of story. I guess you could hear survivors' testimonials.
Yeah. And so for that experience, and how many years later was this?
You mean after Injustice?
Yeah.
2 years. Yeah.
Okay.
2 years.
So just in 2 years still, how much do you think the technology changed in that amount of time that you could like work with, make it more realistic or?
2 years, like when we first created that Injustice project, user, they couldn't actually walk around and move around in VR space. But for Journey Through the Camps, I think at the time we were using HTC Vive, and we use the room scale VR, and so you can't like freely walk around the whole space, but at least if you have, if you have some space in virtual reality, you could walk around and see things, see things more like clearly, and you could touch things, and more interactive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then how can we watch these trailers? Are they still available? How do you could you put these experiences on again? What happens after, you show some people? Does it go, what's the afterlife of that?
For the journey through the camps, is still at CMU campus.
Mm-hmm.
So that, I guess distribution, you could actually, if you want to give more like accessibility for users, you could actually upload it on Oculus Store and other VR platform. But because it was more like client projects, they wanted to be at the location, so we actually set it up, this experience there. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you, Jaehee. We'll get back to you in 2 seconds. And then our last panelist for the evening, her name is Lee Erdman, and she is, I believe, joining us from Canada, but let me know if that's wrong. Oh, I think you might be muted.
Oh, sorry. That's a double click. Oh. Hi, Shayna. Hi, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here and to be involved with all these amazing artists that are doing all this groundbreaking work, and it's so talented on every level. Wow. Yes, I am Canadian and I'm calling in from Toronto, and I acknowledge the land that I am meeting you on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. I also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. So, yes, hello.
So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks to
and
you.
As Karen had said, Karen and you have had kind of a working, acquaintanceship, relationship for a couple years, 1 year?
Oh my goodness. I think it's just been over a year.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was doing my master's in film and media, and because I'm a retired dancer and musical theater performer, I was looking for a way to sort of combine all the things that I loved. I undergrad in drawing and painting, and then I had a long performing career for 20 years, and during that time I became more involved in acting and filmmaking and all of that, more into media. We actually started a little film club here in our acting studio called the 20 Buck Club, and we made a new film every 2 weeks, and just sort of getting involved from really a grassroots way. When I realized that I wanted to really transition my career, and I was a member of the Dancers Transitional Resource Center, which is actually a global organization, but they have an office here in Toronto. And they funded me to go and get my master's. So I did a self-directed master's. And I was seeking to join all of the things that I thought I was kind of okay at and that I loved, and find some solution. So I was looking at the visual art and the film. I was looking at dance and theater and live performance. And I realized that one of my biggest pet peeves was watching a recorded live performance because it just was not worthy to sort of show the talents in the way it really felt to sit in an audience in front of live human bodies moving. This was like in 2017. And I think Pina had just come out, and Wim Wenders was talking about doing a 3D version. So he did it in 3D, which I wasn't able to see. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that VR might be the perfect medium to translate all the text that is in the live human body that we miss out on in a 2D flattened recording. so yeah, so I did my master's in that, and I sort of started putting together some projects that I was interested in. I went to University of Antwerp's inaugural VR storytelling summer school in 2019 and did some prototyping with some cinematic 180 in Unity projects. Yeah, and then I was good to go. I graduated last year in January, February, and then the whole world shut down. So I just started networking online, reaching out to people, and I don't know, I went to a conference last fall called the Performance XR Conference in Canada. I met a whole bunch of awesome people who were actors and theater workers and theater performers and theater makers working in virtual reality. And I said, wow, I would love to have that job. And now I'm doing it. So I'm actually like acting live in a virtual reality play.
Yes, and I wanted you to show us and talk to us about exactly what does that mean?
Yeah, what does that mean? Well, really quickly before the video runs, what it means is that there is I don't know if you are all familiar with this, but much like other social media platforms, there is a virtual reality social media platform where the avatars all get together and hang out and be social and do crazy, weird things together, and even have like dance-offs and break dance competitions, which is actually innovating the mocap space right now, which is crazy. So a bunch of creators started to say, well, it's there, let's use it. Let's do plays there. Let's make some stuff. It's like an open platform. It's free. And, you know, we're so lucky to live in this time where we have this enormous gaming industry, and there are all these super talented developers and world builders, and they just like game for anything and like, yeah, sure, I'll build you a world. Why not? You know, and so this group called Ferryman Collective decided that they had a really good script with an interactive play from another producer called Coact, and it was called Welcome to Respite, the Severance Theory, and originally was an in real life immersive interactive play. And they translated it to VR, and so because the possibilities are infinite, and it just really worked out. So I zoom in from my headset to the metaverse, to our world in VR chat, and we do the show. So we've been running at Tribeca and Venice, and we're currently finishing off Rain Dance right now. So never in my wildest dreams did I ever think I'd be going back to performing, especially from a VR headset from my guest room. But lo and behold, this is what happened. So I do have a little trailer. Yeah.
Also with that, like, so you just said Venice, Rain Dance. So could I go to the Venice show, like when it was running?
Yes, some of the festivals require you to be a pass holder. Some of them are just buy ticket. Rain Dance is very, very about the indie scene, so they're really open and loose, and you can buy a ticket to the show. I think the last show is on Saturday or Sunday, so get your tickets now.
Cool. So yeah, let's see what you're talking about.
Sure. Yeah. So this video is the official trailer for the show called Welcome to Respite. Yeah. And so it's based around interacting with the audience, and that the audience, one lucky audience member gets to buy the ticket to be the child character, which is the lead. And the child goes back into time to deal with some memories that the child can or can't remember with their parents. And so that's me. I'm Molly. I'm the mom. And you're seeing it from like the audience's point of view right now if you were playing the child in the green hat there. And there are other audience members that are there, but we make them invisible so that they're just observers. But yeah, it deals with trauma and time travel and nightmarish childhood, scary stuff, but it also is very exultant and fun. And this is the opening part where you come in, and that's me and the little bear welcoming you to the kids' fort. And so you shrink down to the size of a little tiny toy, and then you travel into different environments. while you're going through this storyline, which is actually being controlled completely by us as actors. We're the only two people in there. So it's quite a learning curve.
And I mean, you are like verbally, just like we're talking now, you are verbally talking, right?
Yes, I am basically, the way I like to say it is like I'm basically puppeting a animated avatar. So I have, if you're familiar with the VR headset, you know that there's trackers on your eyes and a little bit on your face, and then you have your controllers, so that it kind of knows where your hands are, and then it kind of makes up the rest of your body. So it's not like a mocap suit, and we're just in beta. I would love it if it was like that. I think they're trying to get there. They're trying to raise money for that. But so it is a little clunky, but it's an amazing way for somebody with like really no money to prototype or to go in and play and make something on these open free platforms. So yeah, it's a lot of voice acting. It's a lot of movement acting. So dancers are just primed for this kind of work.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really fun. It's really, really fun.
Yeah. So based on, and one last question before we kind of move on to like a bunch of just open-ended, how much body language do you have to do, even though you're an avatar? I mean, and can they see facial expressions? Like what is that like for you?
Yes, I have 4 facial expressions, which I control with my left hand controller. And the thumbs up is a smile, and the clenched hand is concerned, and the pointy finger is angry. And I think there's one more, a peace sign that's also a smiley. So those are my 4. And then I'm interacting with the audience character. And then I'm moving myself around with my right hand controller and picking things up. And, you sort of have to make your body like a frame, as maybe Lucinda would say, but a frame, so that, and you're actually kind of have to kind of remind yourself and sort of get into the habit of like, you're wearing a person, you're wearing a suit, you're wearing a person. And then the movements can become quite fluid and smooth. But you can tell when people aren't used to it, because they kind of go around like this, but you practice in front of a mirror, which is great. I did a lot of rehearsing in my VR home in front of my mirror in my avatar to get used to how I was going to act and move and what the avatar could do and what it couldn't do, because there is some weird stuff where if you turn but you don't move your turning signal, sometimes your top of your body will spin around and it looks like
wow,
really weird. So there's some stuff. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. All right. So pausing there, I wanted to move on to some more generalized questions for everyone. And kind of what Lee just left us off with is kind of this new learning curve of possibly just in that experience, how you might have to change what you've learned prior to this, which like takes me to the question of, can anyone comment on some of the differences between live and stage performance and how you've, taken that knowledge and shifted into more digital works? Is there a different learning curve for creation, for doing? Also, this could be, talking about lighting or differences, like does this, because we're doing film, it needs to be storyboarded, whereas I think Jaehee and I have talked about in documentaries, sometimes you can allow it to happen. It's a choice of, I'm going to film this right now or not. So when you think about what you might have done prior or how the technology kind of shifts and changes things, can anyone talk about, just kind of give a wave or just start off with kind of the difference there? Go ahead, Lee.
I can jump in quickly and just put in my 2 cents. What I've been noticing a lot, because I come from both sides, from theater and film. Well, first of all, we know that when you're in virtual reality, there's no frame. So that is your major issue to solve. But there's lots of, I wouldn't say rules, but like there are lots of accepted sort of ways to control your visitors' POV. But what I think from seeing a lot of things, I notice that dramaturgy needs to reach out to cinematography to make it happen. Because a lot of theater people go in and do VR stuff, but they're doing great big proscenium acting. And then a lot of film people would go into a different thing and it would look too small. So knowing, it's almost like, okay, we know that VR is a totally different medium, but even within that medium, there are different, I don't know how to say it, like ways of making that are specific to how big your world is, how much control you have, how much access the viewer has, and working with performing in that way to help the performer, because they don't know, because they're usually like in a black box or a green screen or a whatever, that the directing and coming from the place where Kate was saying that she recognized there needed to be somebody with choreographic experience on the set if you're going to translate dance to film, because we operate on composition that is dealing with depth, whereas filmmakers, their composition is finding frames, and it's a very different way to work.
Yeah, anyone else have any thoughts on that? Personal experiences?
Yeah, I really resonated with the puppetry comment that Lee made. I definitely feel like there is an element of puppetry going on when I'm trying to figure out how something wants to work. And I think that it's really important in the choreographic process to have your environment set up so you're really responding to it and designing inside of that kind of immersive installation, rather than preparing steps and directives and then plunking it on. It's not an afterthought. It's not decor. It really has to be kind of like organically built all together.
And then Lauren, with what you do or some of the projects you've worked with or some of the artists you've worked with, do you find similar experiences? Was it a learning curve?
Always a learning curve. Like always, yes. I mean, most of what we do, I would say probably 80 to 90% of what we do is live, and we push our partners to really do live work. Because we work with theater and organizations that are really nervous about doing live online. It's sort of this constant push pull about like, do we pre-record something? Do we do something that is that's more structured? But as a sports fan, there's a crackle to live that you just can't change that. And part of it is in like that moment, Jaehee, when you forgot to unmute, like there's something in that moment that brings an audience together where we're like, hey, we really want you. It's like I'm a little kid back in church where I'm like, hey, I just really want you to do this. Like, you got this. Like, I feel like it brings people together, like those little spontaneous moments of like little imperfections. And I know artists and performance artists particularly are perfectionists, but there's something about the uncertainty, the unpredictability of live that, like, for me as an adrenaline junkie, like our audiences always talk about some of the stuff we pulled off live. And our clients, like, we didn't think you guys were going to do this. And we were nervous as hell. But that was like the most fun thing. So I'm like live all the time. Like I really just, I just think it's not comparable to anything else that's pre-programmed. That being said, the stuff that we win awards for are the stuff that we spend, 8 months, a year doing. And that's sort of the level of pristine finish on that ends up sort of pushing to the next level. And that's great work too. My team in particular, I'm not a creative. I've got a team of folks who I sort of like, they kick me in the back and they let me run the live stream every once in a while. But like they really like that sort of the planning process, the storyboarding, the more traditional workflows. A number of folks come out of theater in the film space, so they feel comfort there. But we're kind of down for whatever.
Yeah. So I want to go ahead, Jaehee, you want to add?
Yeah, I just want to add a small thing. When we first started VDEP projects together, I asked, I think actually all of you to produce like a small, like a short 360 video. The purpose of that was like, first, I want you to understand like at least like a 360 video technology. the second is, I thought that maybe your choreography might change based on that prototype. So, like whenever like I produce this type of collaboration projects, I thought, we should learn a little bit from like, we should interact more, communicate more, and learn from others, right? So that was like the main purpose of producing like a small prototype and learn from it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and as an artist, I also liken that to, I mean, I kind of choreograph like that. Like I'm some people can and have the talent to go ahead and know exactly what, it is mapped out, like count by count. I'm not necessarily like that because there's an organic flow to what I do, which I think learning through experience is part of, how you map it out and figure it out. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. I wanted to take a pause because we have some audience questions. So back to Lauren, way back in the beginning. In what ways, and this is kind of going way off topic, total switch of thought process. In what ways do big tech companies, Facebook introducing Meta, impact the way Crux is given opportunities, or will it impact that?
Yes. We have a good relationship. I have a good personal relationship with Facebook. That being said, I'm a vocal critic. And I would zoom out to say, like, at this point, I'm not thinking a whole lot of just about Crux, but about the entire creative sector. Facebook is planning to spend $100 million a year for the next 10 years investing in the immersive space. They're planning to hire 10,000 workers. Everybody that is on this screen right now knows how hard it is to find one person to join a project. And so the idea that they're going to hire 10,000 people in the XR space is terrifying, in particular communities of color, where we actually have a pipeline problem, not like a imagined one like so many other people talk about. And in comparison, something people talk about sort of art place being the creative placemaking sort of beacon of hope that the art sector did. It was 10 years, 125 million. And Mark Zuckerberg's talking about 100 million every year for 10 years. And in essence, Mark is engaging in creative placemaking in the digital space. And I don't trust Mark to mow my lawn, let alone build an entire immersive environment where, to convince us or to monetize all of our behavior, our hope, our desires, our interactions, the art we see, the art we make, to sort of monetize all that. I'm glad this is the first question that was asked because everyone else can take us on an up note. Because I'm a real downer about this right now. Totally, I'm like super frown. But yes, I mean, not just Crux, but for all of us, and we have to pay attention, and I'm really pushing funders to pay attention. I spoke at Grant Makers in the Arts conference last week and was like, y'all have to pay attention to what's happening because I don't know many artists who aren't making money online right now, and I don't think that's going to change. In some, it's not everything. We'll go back to doing in person. We'll go back to, but like at some point, this is going to have just a ripple effect throughout the creative economy.
Yeah. And with that, I mean, I think that's all the time we have. So.
Oh no, really?
I'm joking.
Oh God. I was like, no, it's not. I thought we had 18 more minutes. I was mathing so fast, like you didn't let me do the last comment on that.
So thanks everyone. That was really great. Thanks, Lauren. So I do have a question. I'm going to jump to kind of talking about cryptocurrency. Another audience question for Jaehee was, how do you see NFTs or other types of cryptocurrencies impact the way VR projects are experienced and the future of technology becoming intertwined in everyday life? Does that have a relationship there? How did the two kind of new currency impact possible everyday life?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not an NFT expert. So recently, actually, I was a little bit skeptical about I didn't really know about NFT, Bitcoin and all that. But I feel like I should start doing some research and try to learn from, what's out there. Because, I thought, this was not a joke, but, I thought so new and nothing, still a lot of people, total new industry. So I don't know how this NFT and VR is going to combine with the meta, with the metaverse and everything, I don't know, but I know like a lot of, I mean, NFT industry is like growing crazy, like since like, I mean, it has been growing really quickly, especially in the States and all over. And I don't think we could just ignore it. And I mean, I think it's worth to invest your time and do some research and think about like how this could change your life and VR and other technology. Yeah.
Yeah, and whoever else has some commentary, absolutely jump in. This is part of what this VDEP project is about, is trying to create and think about how can artists make sustainable livings, which that might be an option. Who knows? I don't know.
I
mean,
I think it goes both ways, and I think it's worthwhile following, because I'm kind of like you, Jaehee. I was like, oh, give me a break. What a scam, multi-level marketing, blah, blah, blah. Forget it. It's never going to happen. But now that the evil Mark is building his meta evil verse, you better believe that he's going to start charging for things. And I mean, it's happening. Like, remember Second Life? When I never played it, but you could buy, Lauren's like, you could like, oh my God, I really want that hat. And you would buy it with your cryptocurrency. Really, it was, right? You had tokens. That's really going to come into play. So it could be good if you have something to sell that everybody wanted. But now,
my friends, oh, sorry, I'm breaking.
Yeah, go ahead. What? Yeah.
My friends at Standard Vision just started a gallery in, it's based in LA. It's called Vellum, and it's an NFT gallery. Check them out. They're supporting people. I mean, like, my understanding is that NFT culture has been pretty bro-y and a little bit kind of like gross in terms of like the type of art that people initially were investing in. But I think there is a diversification happening now. And yeah, people are making serious loot. I minted my first NFT with Super Chief through the Every Woman Biennial. And I'm super excited about it as a platform. I know a lot of like coders are against it. But yeah, because it's like commodifying something that, like, Beeple gave away his everydays, and that was like an open platform. And then now, but so great to see these artists who have been all about sharing information now get to cash in on that. Yes, I think it's kind of like the Wild West, like gold rush. I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So we have another audience question. I'm going to combine it with one of the ones that I had kind of also thought about and sent you all. So when it comes to body, and this was the audience question, when it comes to body image, and this was specifically for Lee to begin, when it comes to body image, representation, and creating avatars, what are some of the biases you've seen, if there are any? I think everyone might be able to touch on that with your experience, but to also add a little puff to that. For Lauren, your work addresses racial and social justice at Crux. One of your aims is to open up creative possibilities for Black artists in AR and VR. What is the landscape of immersive tech like for BIPOC folks? So when we're talking about body image, avatars, creation, for all of you to comment on what your experiences have been, and specifically for BIPOC individuals, does that, make an impact?
Yeah, I mean, they don't make an ass like mine in the metaverse. So that's a struggle.
Who can we contact? Who can we email?
Yeah, right. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about us in this space, other than to say that it's hard. I wanted to lift up Alice Shepard's work. I'm guessing that, I'm seeing heads nod, so I don't need to do an intro. A couple years ago, Alice and I had a conversation where they were talking. They're experimenting with a VR project. We're really thinking about how an audience could feel, what an audience member, how they could use VR to help an audience member feel what it felt like to dance in a wheelchair, and realize that VR headsets automatically correct to standing up. There was not a wheelchair option. There really is not for what she was trying to build. there really wasn't a correlation. And so really has done, a fair amount of research into what accessibility looks like in that space in VR, which has been some of the more interesting work to think about, which is, we'll get to race and everything else, but I feel like we always go just sort of, we get race, we get gender, mostly okay, and then we sort of give up and say everything's okay. But I do think that really thinking about accessibility in terms of ability is important. And there are some good platforms that are doing, I was surprised that AltSpace VR came out with live captions before Zoom did, which kind of blew my mind. Like they did a beta test really early on in the pandemic when Zoom was still, pretty shitty. I mean, I think Zoom's made some, has made some really big strides in accessibility space, but the fact that we were experiencing live captions in VR with those social interactions in space was really dope to me. So I just wanted to make sure that we brought that into the conversation. Alice's work is pretty revolutionary generally, but there is a focus on sort of that accessibility in VR. There's a professor at Columbia called named Regine Gilbert, who's also doing a lot of accessibility work in VR. Black woman, and is like her book just came out. But I didn't want us to leave the conversation without talking about that bit of the VR space.
Can I actually ask a question about that? Because I'm unclear about something. So do you think that there isn't accurate representation in VR because there isn't a lot of diversity amongst the community in the first place, right? Like Lee just pointed, okay. Like you make what you look like, you know what I mean? Like you make things that are sort of similar to you. You can go outside of that, of course, but you always try to represent yourself. And what I found in this panel that I didn't realize is that, in a lot of this sort of like tech world that I'm not super knowledgeable about, even finding a diverse panel to discuss these things was challenging. I mean, we had to research, we had to reach out to people, we had to ask a lot of questions. And I feel like, both of those things are connected. And I just would be interested. I don't know what your world looks like. And so if anybody can speak to that, just, about.
Yeah. I mean, so when I started Crux, there was a piece at Tribeca maybe in 2017 called Neurospeculative Afrofeminism. That was the one that I sort of passed over and mentioned about like sort of being my like women of color, beautiful piece. It was the first time many of us who've been in this space ever had brown hands in VR. Normally you have these, it's really, and it's something I hadn't really, how weird is it to have white hands if you're not white? And especially like nobody has hands this white. Like it was like just super no thought, but you're in the space. I had a theory that there were Black people and there were Black and brown people in the space who felt isolated. So I really started Crux as a community. We've got close to 400 folks in our network now. So we're here. We're either isolated and underfunded out on the fringes, or we've been sucked up by companies who are so desperate to hire us that we're locked away kind of in a little tower, and still disconnected from the work in toxic work environments. Where we say something and people just do what they want to do, like that Pepsi commercial with Kendall Jenner. Like, I feel like people are advocating on the inside and they just get ignored. So I think you're right. And also like, we're here, we're just hard to find. And so Crux was really, we're trying to bring folks and dispel that myth a bit.
I
Go for it.
I have a really sad but Black comedy story about this that'll probably give you the full lay of the land, which is when I was doing one of my research papers 2 years ago, and I was reaching out to virtual producers, like production studios here in Canada, mostly, because I was kind of trying to also make connections and things like that. I couldn't find one female, like period, to talk to. I didn't even know if they had any women. Like when I looked at their about us, who we are, I never found chicks except for marketing, I guess. And there's nothing wrong with marketing. That's great. And women are really good at it, but it was like very, very noticeable. So it's like you feel like you're defeated before you even start, because when I phoned these guys and asked for interviews, they would love to have interviews with me and talk all about themselves and everything that they're doing. But when I came to the end for my ask, it was like, oh yeah, sure, bye, click, bye. Like, it's over, you don't exist. And I remember talking to one unnamed creative director / CEO of a big video game production studio here. And I just said, like, okay, so what does your creative team look like? Because that's where I'm looking to enter, And he said, oh, well, we don't really have a creative team. And I'm like, well, how do you come up with your concepts? How do you come up with your projects? Oh, we just get a bunch of 2-4s and we bring them to the office and we call all the guys out of the back and we sit around and shoot the shit and find some ideas. And I just thought, well, don't you know, like, that's why it's not working. Like, that's not a design format. Like, that's not, there's nothing in that that's even well thought out but maybe it was because early days and the VFX guys were all getting in, building their own studios and doing all this stuff. And they just like called their friends in and got big contracts and made a ton of cash right away. I don't know, but it was like very disheartening. Because I was really looking for real information, and I was getting like, oh, we just sit around and have a few beers and talk about what we think is cool. And so if you're wondering why there's no representation in the games world or even like a lot of the VR stuff, that's why it's still coming from that group, that it's funneling through them and out. So yeah, more the reason for all of us to be sticking around and trying to like get in there. And also the thing that Lauren said about being sucked into like the slavish economy of like building that kind of stuff. It's something that I've thought about, and then I've said, no, I'd rather be broke. Like I this is my life. I'm an artist. I don't want to like be like doing bad. Like, I was in promotions, I was in events before, I was working for big multinational companies doing gross things and putting those events on, and I don't want to do it anymore. So yeah, I mean, Lauren needs to start something really, really big so we can all work for her.
It's just interesting that you're all saying that, because it definitely, I mean, there's many parallels in the dance world. Like, it's not far at all. So I thank you for sharing all of that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I want to be mindful of the time because it's about 8:26. So I just wanted to kind of wrap everything up. This has been so fruitful and really just like heartfelt. It is inspiring. It is meaningful. It's, just having the feels about it all. We're passionate, we're passionate people about all of these things. So, very grateful that you all were a part of this panel. Last little question, for people that are unaware or hesitant about VR, whether it's because they're an artist that really is all about live performance, it's what I've been trained to do, that's my experience, I'm not interested. Do you have anything to say about the potentials, what your experience has been, anything that you might want to kind of leave lasting thoughts with to, young professionals or, old professionals that are learning new mediums, anything like that? So Jaehee, why don't we start with you?
I think I'll say like my advice or, my thought is, just start small. Like, you don't have to create like this amazing VR experience, like high quality VR experience. Maybe, think of it as like, you are like playing with this technology and, let's try to create something small and maybe learn from there, like when you try to compare like your project with others and, if you have too high expectation, you don't even want to start with it. Like, for example, NFT, I don't really know. It seems like you have to spend a lot of time with it. But, I'm like, when I'm studying or learning a new thing, I just try to start with such a small project, and just do a little bit of testing and see how that works. So that would be my recommendation or advice.
Little bit of testing. That is absolutely key advice.
Yeah. And just don't get stressed out, when you are doing it. Mm-hmm. So,
Lee, you want to add on?
Yeah, sure. That was really, really good advice. Yeah, a lot. I do notice that there's a lot of heck no, I'm terrified of that from a lot of the very, very, very well-known and constantly working choreographers and directors that I know here in Canada. And I'm constantly, and they're my friends, and I'm like, you have to try this. I'm serious. I would say go join a media club. You can probably rent a 360 camera for $5 a day and rent it for a week and go run around and play with it and have fun with it and learn about the medium. And it's so accessible right now. That's where I would encourage people to start. You're going to learn so much from that. You're going to learn that everything's a one shot. You're going to learn that preparation is key. You're going to learn about depth, composition, and all of those really basic things that'll translate into everything. And from there, you can paper prototype all your projects, and then you actually have like them. And when people ask you what you're working on, you can say, oh, you want to see my little deck of my projects? Here's my idea, and and kind of go from there. So yeah, it is step by step for sure, but you can do it. And I'm telling you, if you're a theater person or a dancer, you don't know how much you know until you start working with this medium. You know it, you already know it. You just need to get past that little glitch, and it'll take like, I don't know, half an hour or 1 hour, and you'll realize, oh, I know this.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. Lauren, any lasting thoughts about what to do, why to do it?
Yeah, I mean, this is a space that does bring out like the imposter syndrome in all of us, for sure. To be really direct, like go buy a 360 camera, like go to Best Buy, grab a 360 camera and a tripod. And the next time that you are rehearsing, just plop it, like just turn it on and plop it down in the middle of your rehearsal space and like let it be and see what happens. That's tactical advice. I can't believe I didn't remember Valencia James' work at iBeam last year until right now. Valencia's a dancer, performer who developed essentially a workflow for performance artists. That's like a whole toolkit that sort of, it tells you what you need to know in like words you'll understand, because she's a non-technical dancer who, sort of put a team together and figured it out in a way. And also like the VR community is really friendly. I mean, not like the big guys aren't friendly, but like we're friendly. So like, hopefully our contact information will be shared and you can holler at us, and, we can be a resource. Sorry, I just voluntold all y'all we're going to be a resource to the audience. So yeah, but I think the conversation is what kind of keeps me going every day.
Awesome. Except don't contact me. Sorry. I'm not available. Yes. Awesome. Yes. Anyway, this is what this is here for. And Kate, lasting thoughts. What has changed your world in this?
I mean, I haven't actually worked in VR, but I would just say in working with digital media and just work in general, I think it's great to like welcome vulnerability into your process, and to know that that self-publishing is okay. And you may feel like you're like screaming into a void, but there is community, and we are here, and it'll come back. You'll hear an echo at some point. I tell that to myself every morning when I wake up and try to make new stuff. I think it's like a nonviolent practice, and I'm just thrilled to be here with you all, and thank you for your time.
Well, thank you all. This has been an awesome Tuesday final wrap up of VDEP for year one. So we couldn't be more grateful or happy to have you all join us. Yeah, I mean, thank you to Kate, Lauren, Jaehee. All of their info is in the chat in the Zoom. All of the links of all the resources that have been mentioned is in there. And we hope to see you all virtually some other time, and maybe in person sometime soon too. So if anyone's in the Pittsburgh area, give us a little shout. But thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.